There are pains that leave no visible marks. There are wounds that were caused by soft words, by cold silences, by small actions that repeated until they tore inside. And if you are someone chosen by God, you may know what it is to carry this type of pain, one that almost no one understands, but that consumes you from within. There are moments when it seems that the world does not notice what is done to you. People hurt you behind your back, judge you without knowing your struggle, distance themselves when you need them the most, or rise against you for no reason. And the worst, they do this as if nothing had happened, as if you were invisible. But you are not, at least not to God. God sees what no one else sees. He knows what is behind every word that hurt you, every gesture of disdain, every silent betrayal, and He is not indifferent to it. When a chosen one is hurt, heaven does not remain silent. It may seem like nothing is happening, but God has already begun to act from the moment you were wronged. In this video, we will talk about how God deals with those who hurt a chosen one. But do not expect a message of revenge or hatred. Here you will understand that God's justice is deeper, more precise, and wiser than any human response. And you will also see that this justice is not just punishment. It is restoration, it is defense, it is honor. If this message touches something inside you, follow this channel. Because here you will not hear ready-made phrases. Here you will be reminded of who you are in the eyes of God. Someone chosen, someone protected, someone that heaven defends. Let's go together until the end. Something strong is waiting for you in this video. The first sign that God is present in your pain is the fact that He sees everything. He does not overlook. He does not ignore. He does not look away when someone hurts you. Even if no one else has seen it, even if you could not explain it, God saw it in detail, and He has kept it. When someone betrays you in silence, God is there. When they speak about you behind your back, He hears. When they treat you with disdain, exclude you for no reason, try to take away the shine that He Himself put in you, none of this goes unnoticed. It may not seem like it, but God has never been absent. Many times, what hurts is not just what was done to you, but the fact that no one noticed. The feeling of injustice grows when everything goes unpunished, when the other moves on as if nothing happened, while you are left picking up the pieces of what was broken inside you. But heaven is attentive. God is just. He does not move in our time, but He does move. He does not forget what harmed you. Every tear that fell in silence was heard. Every time you chose not to retaliate was noted. None of your pain was in vain. The mistake of those who hurt a chosen one is thinking that they are hurting just anyone. But when someone touches someone that God has chosen, they are touching something of His. And that changes everything, because God is a father, a judge, a defender, and He stands up for His own, always. His justice does not shout, but it is firm. It may take time, but it does not fail. And when it arrives, it not only exposes what was hidden, but also honors what was in silence. God is meticulous. He knows the intentions, the thoughts, the behind the scenes of each situation. You may not have been able to prove what you felt. You may have been disbelieved, silenced, misinterpreted, but God saw. He knows what was done, what was said, what was plotted, and more importantly, He knows who you were in the midst of all this. He saw your effort to maintain faith, even with a wounded heart. Sometimes heaven remains silent for a time, not because it is indifferent, but because it is preparing the perfect answer. God does not administer half justice. He does not merely reverse evil. He also restores what they tried to take from you: peace, dignity, trust, hope. Those who harmed may think they have escaped, but no one escapes the justice of God. It may take days, months, even years. But his timing is different from ours. And when the answer comes, it comes in the right way, at the right time, with weight and purpose. You do not need to prove anything. God knows. He saw, he heard, and he is taking care. While the world looks at you as someone ordinary, heaven treats you as someone set apart, someone treasured, someone who carries something the world does not understand, but that God recognizes clearly. And if your heart is weary from so many injustices you had to swallow in silence, today, God reminds you, none of them went unnoticed. Your pain is recorded in heaven, and his justice is on the way. It is not about revenge. It is about honor, about care, about defense, about truth. God does not sleep. God does not fail. And what was done against you will be dealt with by his hands, with precision, with love, and with justice. The second warning sign for those who touch a chosen one is that God does not ignore. He judges, and he judges with his own justice. It is not the justice of men, flawed and limited, but his justice, which sees the invisible and acts with perfect precision. What seems like silence is, in fact, preparation, and what seems like a delay is divine strategy. Sometimes it seems like evil is winning. You see people who hurt, betray, deceive, and still seem to prosper, laugh, live in peace. And you wonder, is God not seeing this? But the word is clear. Do not fret because of evildoers, nor be envious of the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass. Psalm 37. What the wicked plant, they reap. God does not forget any seed sown, whether good or bad, and those who sow malice against a chosen one will reap the consequences, even if that harvest takes time. God's justice never gets lost. It only waits for the moment when it will teach, correct, or remove. In biblical examples, this becomes evident. Joseph was sold by his brothers and thrown into a pit, but God turned the betrayal into a springboard. David was pursued by Saul for years, humiliated, threatened, hiding in caves. But at the right time, God placed him on the throne while Saul fell in disgrace. There is no evil done against a chosen one that ends in peace for the perpetrator. There may be a phase of apparent tranquility, but judgment will come. And it will come in a way that no one will be able to say it was a coincidence. Because when the hand of God moves, it is unmistakable. God does not act on impulse. He gives time. Time for repentance. Time for change. Time for the wicked to turn back. But if there is no repentance, he judges firmly. And what seemed like human protection crumbles before the truth that heaven reveals. This justice is not driven by anger, but by holiness. God is not vengeful. He is just. And for that reason, what is done against a chosen one returns, not as mere punishment, but as a divine response to the injustice that was committed. Whoever dug a pit will fall into it. That is why you do not need to fight with your own hands. God is already taking care. The wicked who laugh now may be laughing at their own downfall. Because everything built on lies, deceit, and malice falls. Sooner or later it falls. And when it falls, God lifts his chosen one in the same place where they were hurt. You may be waiting for an apology, a restitution, a confession. But understand, your restoration does not depend on the other's attitude. It depends on God's justice, and it is coming with power, with silence, with truth. It comes when no one expects it, but when your soul needs it most. You are protected. You are guarded. And those who rise against you will deal with the one who defends your name. You do not need to prove anything. God himself will show. And when he shows, even those who doubted will bow down. Because what God exalts, no one can bring down. God's justice is the safest response for those who have already suffered too much trying to be just alone. Trust. What hurt you will be resolved, not by the strength of your hands, but by the authority of a God who does not allow anyone to touch his without consequence. The third sign of spiritual maturity of a chosen one is when they understand that they do not need to seek revenge. Even feeling pain, even knowing that they have been wronged, they choose not to retaliate, not because they are weak, but because they have learned to trust. Justice in God's hands is more powerful than any human word or action. It is normal for our first reaction in the face of pain to be to strike back. The flesh screams. The pride wants a response. The wounded soul demands a voice. But God, who knows the behind the scenes of our pain, invites us to do the opposite, to surrender, to trust, to let Him deal with what hurt, without us soiling our hands in the process. Does the chosen one feel anger? Yes. Do they feel the urge to say everything that is stuck inside? Yes. But they breathe, they pray, they surrender. And there, in that silent act of not retaliating, God begins to act. Because when you give up on revenge, you make room for heaven to move. Romans 12:19 is not just a beautiful verse, it is a divine instruction. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. This is not weakness, it is faith. Faith enough to know that God does not remain silent, that He does not ignore, that He is just and acts perfectly. What hurt you will be addressed, but it will be dealt with by the one who sees everything, including what you were unable to express. The chosen one knows that retaliating with their own hands provides relief for a moment, but it wounds the soul for much longer. Because when you act driven by pain, you disconnect from peace. And what the chosen one needs most is not to win an argument. It is to keep communion with God intact. You do not need to yell to be heard. God has already heard. You do not need to prove anything to anyone. Heaven already knows. Those who need to know the truth will know. Those who need to recognize their mistake will be confronted. Those who need to fall will fall. But all of this happens when you choose the silence of someone who trusts in a just God. This type of silence is not passive. It is active. It is powerful. It is like saying to heaven, I am hurt, but I trust in you. And this surrender moves the heart of God. Because when the chosen one relinquishes revenge, they are saying, I prefer God's justice over the response of my pain. It is at this point that God begins to reverse things. He turns offense into honor, shame into testimony. What was done to belittle you, He uses to lift you up. But this only happens when you refuse to act on impulse and decide to walk in faith. The world may say that you were foolish, that you lost, that you remained silent for too long. But heaven is writing another story. Because the chosen one who trusts in God's judgment never ends up embarrassed. They end up exalted, restored, renewed. And when the answer comes, it comes clean, complete, without the weight of guilt. You do not need to defend yourself. You do not need to seek revenge. Your silence speaks, your surrender shouts, and your God acts with justice, with strength, and with love. Remaining at peace while the world wants a fight is one of the greatest proofs that you know where your true defense comes from. And if today you are facing a pain that cries out for an answer, remember, heaven has already responded. It just remains for time to reveal it. The fourth sign of spiritual maturity is when the chosen one understands that forgiving is freeing oneself. It is not pretending that it didn't hurt. It is not minimizing what was done. It is not letting the other go unpunished. It is deciding that the pain will no longer bind you. It is choosing to breathe again from within. Forgiveness is never easy, especially when the wound was deep and came from someone you never imagined. but it becomes necessary when you realize that the hurt is weighing on you more than the memory. Forgiveness is a key that opens the cell where your soul is trapped. God does not ask you to forgive because the other deserves it. He asks because you deserve to live in peace. Forgiveness is more about you than about who hurt you. It is about cleansing your heart of everything that prevents His presence from flowing freely within you. To forgive does not mean that you accept the wrong. It does not mean that you will get close again. Sometimes forgiveness is from a distance. It is silent. It is internal. It is saying, I don't want to carry this pain anymore. And in that act, you begin to heal areas of the soul that have been stuck for far too long. The chosen one knows that they cannot carry hurt and purpose at the same time. One will always weigh more. And when the hurt weighs, the journey slows down. The heart closes and everything around seems more difficult. That's why forgiveness is a strategic choice for those who want to remain light. God calls you to forgive because He wants to restore. He wants to return the joy that pain stole. He wants to open new paths. But while the heart is full of bitterness, the soul cannot see what heaven is trying to deliver. Forgiveness makes space for the new to enter. It is not easy. No one said it would be. But it is possible. With prayer, with truth, with time. Forgiveness begins with the decision to no longer feed what has harmed you, and with every small step in that direction, you will begin to notice that peace returns to dwell within you. You do not have to do this alone. God is with you in this process. He understands your pain. He acknowledges the effort, and He honors those who choose to forgive, even with a bleeding heart, because this shows maturity. It shows faith. It shows that you know where your true strength comes from. When you release those who hurt you, you are not saying that everything was right. You are saying that you will no longer allow the pain to define you. You are saying, I choose God instead of hurt. I choose to be free instead of being a hostage to my wound. Forgiveness is the door, and on the other side of it is healing, rest, lightness, clarity. When you forgive, you begin to walk faster, breathe deeper, and see with more light. Because heaven begins to flow where there was once only pain. You were not made to carry this weight. You are chosen. And the chosen forgive, not because they forget, but because they decide to live what God has prepared, without chains, without delays, without poison in the heart. To forgive is to restart with a clean heart, and yours is already ready for that. The fifth sign that the chosen one is on the right path is realizing that pain was not the end, but the beginning of something greater. The wound that seemed to weaken you was actually pushing you toward a destiny that only God knew. No suffering you went through was wasted. Pain, when lived with faith, transforms into direction. God never allows a chosen one to suffer in vain. What hurt you today may be the bridge to what will lift you up tomorrow. Every tear has a purpose. Every loss has meaning. Every silence was a preparation that heaven orchestrated in detail. Joseph, in the Bible, was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, unjustly imprisoned. And yet, he did not cease to believe. What seemed to be the end of his story was the beginning of his mission. It was in Egypt, the place of pain, that God placed him in honor. You have also been through painful places, through people who betrayed you, through situations that left you confused. But none of this is outside the plan. Everything that seemed like a delay is, in fact, aligning you with what God has already written. Pain is part of the preparation for those who will carry something great. The chosen one learns that suffering is not rejection. It is refinement. Like gold that passes through fire, you are being purified. God is removing what does not serve, reinforcing what is essential, shaping your soul to fit the purpose He has entrusted to you. While you thought you were being broken, God was merely repositioning you. He does not want to see you bleed without reason. He wants to see you grow with roots, and for that, He even uses wounds. Because He knows that only a healed heart can sustain what comes from heaven. Nothing that happened to you is a loss if it was lived with God. No abandonment is the end. No betrayal is a full stop. All of this will be reorganized by His hands to become a testimony. What they tried to use to bury you will be used as the foundation to raise you up. When pain arrives, remember, you are not being destroyed. You are being prepared. And when the time comes, you will look back and see that it was precisely that difficult moment that placed you in the exact spot God wanted. Pain was part of the journey. The sixth sign that you are a chosen one is when God begins to restore what seemed lost. You look back and see everything that was taken away, relationships that crumbled, friendships that disappeared, dreams that withered, hopes that were extinguished. And you wonder if there is still anything to rebuild. God's answer is clear: yes. Nothing is completely lost to Him. God is an expert in new beginnings. When the enemy thinks he has destroyed everything, that is when heaven begins to act. Even if it seems late, even if you feel tired, He can still breathe life into what has dried up. He does not just return. He renews, transforms, surprises. Perhaps you have lost trust, peace, motivation, or even your identity. But God does not let a chosen one live in the aftermath of what was broken. He goes deep into the soul, picks up the shards, and begins to rebuild. With patience, with grace, with power. God's restoration is not superficial. It reaches where no one else could touch. He heals the root of the wound, restores dignity, self-esteem, the sparkle in the eyes. And when He is done, what was pain becomes strength. What was a scar turns into a mark of overcoming. You do not need to know how everything will align. You just need to believe that God is working. As long as you breathe, He acts. The time you think you have lost, He can restore double. With more wisdom, more lightness, more truth. With Him, nothing is wasted. Everything is restored. The seventh sign that you are a chosen one is to realize that pain not only broke you, it strengthened you. God does not waste suffering. He uses every tear, every loss, every injustice as a tool for preparation. You may have gone through the valley, but you did not come out of it the same way. You came out different, more mature, more sensitive, more resilient. Just as gold is refined in fire, the chosen one is shaped in pain. Not to become harder, but to become deeper. Pain did not make you bitter. It made you more aware, more attentive to what matters. Stronger where there was once weakness. Pain made heaven draw near. While the world saw you falling, God saw you growing. He sustained you from within. And what seemed like your end was actually pushing you to your next level. It was not easy, but it was useful. And you will realize this even more clearly when you look back. What today still feels like a wound will tomorrow be a lesson. What made you silent will make you teach. What seemed like loss brought you gain in areas that only God could touch. Because the chosen one learns through love, but matures through pain. And when they go through pain with faith, they become unshakable. Now that you have heard all this, remember a truth that does not change. God does not take lightly those who touch His own. Whoever hurt you did not go unpunished. They may have escaped human eyes, but not the eyes of God. Heaven recorded your pain, your prayers, your sleepless nights. And God, in the right time, responds with justice. Do not be fooled. Your enemies are not free. They are being dealt with, not by you, but by God. He sees what no one sees. He acts when no one else can. He enters where humans cannot reach. And when he decides to bring justice, no one can stop it. God has not forgotten what was done to you. But he also has not forgotten who you were in the midst of all this. He saw you choosing silence when you could have screamed. He saw you forgiving when you could have hated. He saw you surrendering when everything in you wanted to retaliate. That is why your justice will not come from your strength, but from the throne of God. And when it comes, it will come with honor, with truth, with purpose. Heaven does not just defend you, heaven lifts you up. And when God lifts a chosen one, even those who doubted fall silent. If this message spoke to your soul, comment here. I trust in God's justice. This is more than just a comment. It is an act of faith. And if you are not already following this channel, follow now. Here, you will not find empty religion, but words that touch the spirit of those who have been set apart by God. You are chosen. And this is not just a title. It is your identity. And whoever touches a chosen one, touches something that belongs to heaven. Be at peace. Justice has already begun.